Hello, everyone. This is Brendan Marcello alongside Michael Niziolek. This is the Auburn Undercover podcast presented by WeHaveDonuts.com. DOUGH nuts.com. Gourmet donuts made in Birmingham, available in coffee shops around Birmingham, and also available through mail order for pickup at Prevail Union coffee shops in Auburn and Montgomery. Make sure to go to WeHaveDonuts.com for much more information on how you can get your hands on these beautiful donuts for your corporate event, or if you just want to get a few of your own for your family. Michael, Thursday was a very busy day, starting with the evening hours, really, with the NCAA suddenly handing down their verdict, if you want to call it that, on Austin Wiley. Auburn also picked up a commitment, which we'll discuss later, but the big news Thursday was it's official now. Auburn center Austin Wiley will not be eligible for the rest of the season. And the other time he's really going to be able to play, it looks like, is if he comes back next season. Is this a big blow to Auburn? Obviously, Auburn's doing great right now, ranked in the national polls, second longest winning streak in the country. But there's a lot of hope out there they get Austin Wiley out there at some point this season amidst this investigation, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Well, I think the timing wasn't great. Just what the heck? That was our site. I don't think the timing was great just because of the win streak that they got going on, and they're going on the road, and I don't think that they wanted to be dealing with this. I think they've had the distractions throughout the year and kind of gotten past them, kind of just settled in, and the team's kind of responded and done well. And now you kind of it's a big blow, and you're going to have to deal with a whole nother round of questions. And I think it caught them all off guard. I don't think the program was kind of prepared for the announcement to happen. They hadn't been given kind of any heads up this was coming, so couldn't warn the players. And now you have Austin kind of practicing and knowing that he's not going to play. Does that change the dynamic of things? And you've got Danjel, who now we can is on a separate track, essentially, with reinstatement because they haven't applied for it. They haven't ruled him ineligible. So he's sort of in limbo, and there's no clear path to him to get back on the court.
Yeah, and now you wonder how it affects the team because, as you said, he's been practicing, and they've kind of been hoping that he would maybe return at some point. So maybe that was motivating them a little bit, and you wonder how this team's going to respond now that they're going on the road. And going on the road these next two games, and a big game at Mississippi State. And but, what's interesting about all of this, one, Wiley's not going to play this season. I'm sure his career is probably over at Auburn. I would think he's probably going to go to the NBA after this. It just makes sense. He seems like maybe a second-round guy right now anyway,
right?
Even if he doesn't play. But the stuff about Danjel Purifoy, where Auburn hasn't even asked for reinstatement from the NCAA, and if they haven't done that yet, and here it is, mid-January, I would think that Danjel Purifoy's career might be over as well unless he comes back next season. Obviously, they're not as far along with him as they are the Wiley situation. Now, that's the way I read it. What are you hearing?
Yeah, exactly. We were trying to kind of clarify it throughout the last week or so because Bruce, I think, was asked on January 4th if either of them were ruled ineligible. Philip Marshall reported both had been ruled ineligible, and we're trying to kind of get clarification. Bruce said that hadn't been done. The president's office, the university, has sort of been wishy-washy about the timeline, but we finally had gotten that they were sort of on separate tracks. So we were trying to kind of clarify everything. But this sort of so with Danjel not being ineligible, he can't apply for reinstatement. He's essentially there's this as they've said, investigations ongoing, and you don't really know what they're waiting for. Does that mean if he's what most people consider player one, and the allegations are slightly worse on paper, it would seem to be that things aren't good for him. He's enrolled in classes, he's here, so that kind of gives him a chance to kind of figure out the next couple of months. like you said, if there's an additional penalty, or if he doesn't know what the additional penalty is going to be if he comes back, how could he kind of commit to another year of sitting out?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously he went through a situation last year where he was kind of being late able to play.
Well, 3 years in a row, because he had the ankle injury last year. He was held out his first year here when he redshirted because of academic issues, and then he had to get cleared up. And he's referenced that on Twitter, just about feeling kind of mistreated. But his last statement on this was that he's going to stand by his brothers. But I think he's got to start thinking about his future after, I can see him given this semester, try to figure it out. But if it's still unclear at the end of the year, how do you the NCAA could hand down a harsher penalty. They could say another year you have to wait. And then you're kind of talking about 2 years off. There's just no way he could do that.
Now, I know a lot of fans have been wondering what's been the holdup on all this, of course. I've long said that it's going to take time for this to happen, and you have too. I think everybody who's covering this as an impartial observer has been saying that. It's a complicated matter, especially with the FBI involved in the investigation, the FBI not cooperating with the NCAA at all because the FBI doesn't care what the NCAA has to say. This is their own investigation. It's too bad you didn't know this was happening in their eyes. Now, these were serious allegations, obviously, that involved Danjel Purifoy and Austin Wiley. We're talking thousands of dollars that allegedly exchanged hands between former Auburn assistant coach Chuck Person and the parents of these players. There's always been that question of can they repay it and then be reinstated. I'm sure that was discussed at some point. But the fact now that, as you said, that on paper, the lesser of the allegations involved Austin Wiley's family, and yet he's not playing this season. I don't see any reason why Danjel Purifoy will return. But it also just goes to show you just how serious this was in the NCAA's eyes after Auburn self-reported some of these things and also apparently reported other things. And we still haven't heard about the fates of 2 staff members that they placed on administrative leave. This is a situation that's very complicated and one that I don't think will be summed up, I guess you could say, fixed or sorry, I'm sick. My brain's a fog right now, but completed until probably well after this season's over with, don't you think?
Well, a couple notes on that point. The statement does say, and I think it's important, that if there's any future revelations, because I think the NCAA knows the FBI might have other stuff, or, they don't have those wiretap conversations, transcripts of them. There's a lot of unknowns that they could lead to further penalties for Austin. This doesn't rule out future actions. So that's a sort of a caveat that for both players, that you kind of look, that trial maybe takes another step forward in February. As things kind of come out, what if something else happens that implicates him or the program? That could impact things, and that's sort of an unknown. And the other interesting thing, and I posted this on the board for our VIP members, there's a sentence in there that this statement only applies to the individual, and that does not impact any future infractions on the school, essentially, or action. And the university said they don't know. They expect to know more later because they reported a bunch of violations regarding recruiting and then the impermissible benefits, etc. So that's going to be a cloud hanging over their head a little bit, because I think that the statement kind of makes it clear that there could be sanctions levied at the basketball program. We don't know what the exact violations are. There's obviously, like you said, those 2 staffers, and they haven't been told what they're being accused of, and so that kind of ties into it. So I think still a lot of uncertainty, which, again, Bruce Pearl does not want to be answering questions about on a 13-game win streak.
Yeah, I think, any sanctions or anything like that, that's something that would be probably way down the road, because that actually has to be something.
Not this year.
Yeah, that has to be something that comes, one, for Auburn potentially to penalize itself, right, and then the NCAA takes that into consideration. And then there's that whole notice of allegations, then a 90-day period for Auburn to reply with its own information, and then an NCAA response, and then you have an actual hearing in front of the infractions committee. And that's a long process. That's if it's serious stuff, if it's not secondary in nature. And the way that is worded in the letter, or not the statement, I should say, not the letter, the statement, it doesn't say if they're secondary violations or
Right.
if they extend beyond what was reported to them in this FBI investigation and things that we already know. But the way it's worded makes it sound like there were other issues with recruiting, because they made sure to include the word recruiting in there, not just violations with players currently on the team. So that's something to watch, but I think that's something way down the road we won't really know about. But also, is it secondary in nature, or are they major violations? And that's something Auburn has to figure out for itself before the NCAA gets involved again. And again, as I said, this is something that could go on for a year or 2 years, potentially, if that's the case.
It makes a difference with Bruce as well, just with his situation, having been hired with the show cause and his history. He's going to have to answer some questions about anything that comes up with those violations. It's going to be hard for him to sort of get around. And you got the question of who this will be for the new AD to deal with, which we'll talk about a little later about that search. But they kind of walk into a situation where they're probably going to be having to answer some tough questions down the line about the basketball program and where things go from here.
It's interesting. It's just a weird night Thursday. This all happens. The NCAA tweets out its statement and everything. And then like 30, 45 minutes later, they tweet out, congratulations to Vicky Orr, who is the mother of Austin Wiley and has been alleged to have received money on behalf of, or not on behalf, but from Chuck Person and said to deal with this financial analyst in this FBI investigation. But the NCAA, shortly after announcing this happening with Austin Wiley, and he's not going to be able to play this season, they congratulate his mother for being a finalist for the Hall of Fame. And then later Thursday night, Bruce Pearl retweets that, and then Jay Jacobs, the outgoing athletics director, does as well. You would think, this is how I take this. It certainly looks to me like Auburn is trying to pin everything on Chuck Person, that everybody else is innocent, that the families didn't know what was going on or whatever.
Yeah.
Because usually in a situation like this, in the NCAA cases I've seen in investigations, when someone has taken money or has been offered money, or the person is offering money to someone, I should say, they usually disassociate that person from the program almost immediately.
Their name shall not be spoken. It's like Voldemort.
Right, and that happened with Cecil Newton during the Cam Newton situation. Wasn't allowed. Well, apparently wasn't allowed in buildings, and yet he still found his way inside stadiums. But that's neither here nor there. But that's usually what happens, and yet Auburn seems to still be embracing them. Chuck Person and Vicky Orr's jerseys are still in the rafters, retired, and being honored at Auburn Arena. It's so strange to me, and maybe in my opinion right now, maybe this is all still fresh, but I would certainly say you got to take Chuck Person's name off anything in that building for what he has allegedly done, and if he gets convicted,
I think if there's a conviction or an admission of guilt, or if he pleads guilty, there'll be some changes on the off season to the banners. And we should mention, you mentioned Bruce Pearl's reaction. He did have Tiger Talk today, and amidst the chuckling and how great everything is, they did ask at the top about this. He said, in no uncertain terms, that Austin Wiley is a victim, that he disagrees strongly with the decision, and he kind of revealed, officially that they are going to appeal officially. Auburn said they're going to go through the appeals process, or look at the appeals process or whatever. But so obviously he kind of come out strongly, which I was kind of surprised. Auburn didn't issue a statement on his behalf at all officially, but on Tiger Talk he sort of said that he doesn't agree with it, which I was just interested to see how he said he was very disappointed in the NCAA. Just interesting to see. Other than like a no comment, which I would have kind of expected how they've kind of handled this situation so far.
Well, especially considering his history with the NCAA. I mean, we all know that.
Yeah, that's exactly. Why poke the bear, right?
Yeah, I just don't get it.
You don't want to be kind of saying that stuff. I mean, I don't think that helps his appeals process.
Definitely, and it definitely doesn't. I mean, you want to be as nice as you can, cooperative as possible, which I'm sure they've been cooperative based off what we heard over the last month or two. But because there was that talk early on that Bruce wasn't very cooperative with the president's office, and then things apparently got cleared up a little bit. But having said that, I don't know if that was a smart comment about the NCAA. Saying you're disappointed in that. I mean, sure, he could be disappointed in it, but his quote was more along the lines of, "Why would the NCAA do this to him?" Not, "Oh, we're disappointed in the result, but we'll keep on move forward."
And we're going to appeal. We expect, like the university statement was just like, we're going to go through the appeals process. We respect their appeals process and going to go through it just sort of like that, and we'll kind of see where it ends. To call him the victim, I just think it's kind of, you don't want to make those statements. I don't think you don't want that out there. And that's what they've kind of approached it, especially for him the last couple of weeks. Just say nothing specific about the investigation part of it. So it's just interesting to hear his comments, especially when the university didn't even release a statement from him.
Well, not necessarily a ribbon on this entire situation, but at least some finality of some sort when it involves the potential playing eligibility and time for Austin Wiley and Danjel Purifoy this season. Austin Wiley will not play unless in the appeals process somehow that goes quickly and something else is uncovered and Auburn is able to get him cleared in the appeals process. It certainly looks like the careers of Austin Wiley and Danjel Purifoy may be over at Auburn. Meanwhile, the Auburn basketball team is doing very well. They've gotten one loss. They're 3-0 in the SEC, going to Mississippi State in what could be a tough game, but they're on track to make the NCAA tournament. ESPN entering the Ole Miss game, according to their little computer model, said Auburn with a 96 or 97% chance of making the NCAA tournament. And they're doing it all without Austin Wiley and Danjel Purifoy. Meanwhile, just before this announcement was made by the NCAA concerning Austin Wiley, Auburn picked up a commitment that actually surprised them a little bit. A 4-star power forward, maybe a center, front court member, either way, out of Georgia, Michael.
Yeah, are you going to make me pronounce his name?
That's why I didn't say it, because I have no idea.
I didn't say it, and that's not fair. What is it? Let's see. Babatunde? I mean, there's so many vowels in this last name. King Baloa? I don't know. Sorry. Our website plays music. I don't know if you could hear that every time I load it up. He's a 4-star out of the 2019 class. What is it? How do you say they're at the high school? McCracken?
Sure.
From Georgia, which has been the fertile recruiting ground for Auburn. The last couple of years, obviously produced Chuma Okeke and Davion Mitchell. Interesting, he gives them some size in the front court if they, comes through, because right now he's 2019. There's some talk of him reclassifying. That's not a done deal, nor an expectation that Auburn has, but that's a possibility to look out for. Interesting timing, but it wasn't aligned. It just so happened this was one of those weird things that happened. And they got a 4-star. I mean, good to see that happen, because they had 2 decommitments, one from the 19 class, one from the 18 class, since September. One was unrelated to the Chuck Person stuff. EJ Montgomery, who decommitted 24 hours after that, but the other one just was a 2019 kid that wanted more time to think, Jared Jones. So interesting, because that wasn't really expected. They're not recruiting any really 2018 guys. Baba, I guess I'll call him, was on campus during a football game earlier this season. It was the only game that they had players in with Kobe Brown, a couple other guys. Had been and visited over the summer once, but wasn't something they expected to happen at this moment, but decided to make the decision. So if he sticks with it, it's a good get for Auburn.
Yeah, definitely. And we thought at this point Auburn wouldn't be getting any commitments anytime soon. And the 2019 class was different, but apparently the kid doesn't even have a phone, right? So
that's the word, yeah. So it's interesting. The last guy that was like that was Nick Coe, and he turned out well. Nick Coe dropped his phone, his high school judgment, dropped his phone in a toilet, and didn't get a new one for like a year. So maybe that's a good trend. People without a phone will do well for Auburn.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why we couldn't get him on the phone Thursday night, there you go.
So I reached out to his high school coach, see if we can get in touch with him. Evan Daniels, 24/7 Sports national recruiter, talked to him a little bit, I'm assuming through email or DMs, and so they have a couple quotes from him. I linked to that in our story. Just general kind of stuff, just about how Auburn they have been recruiting him for years. Like the staff, like the campus, and it's close to home, which has been kind of a factor for most of the guys from Georgia that have committed, verbally committed. So. A good track record for Auburn and Georgia, I guess, in both football and basketball. But it'd be interesting to see what direction now things take with the recruiting, just because you have all this and very strange times, I guess, with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Meanwhile, as far as this season, Auburn is sitting pretty, 15-1, 3-0 overall. They're going to Mississippi State Saturday. Auburn has set up a bus service for fans that want to. It's actually a pretty good deal. $50, you get a ticket.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good deal. It's not like it's not a school bus. They're not going to stick you on a terrible. I think it's like a real tour bus. Like a nice, comfy seat bus.
Yeah,
so you're not driving like slum conditions or anything.
Yeah, $50 to sit on a nice bus. It's a 4-hour trip. It's not very long. You get a meal. And you get free travel, and you get a ticket to the game. That's pretty darn good. I know a lot of students are going to do it. They filled up one bus so far. They're willing to take two or more. I know
they
some
got
people.
Two. They're going to take two. They filled up one. They got the second. They said probably would have done more if they had more time, but this was kind of late in the week decision. Kind of Tuesday, Bruce Pearl sort of initiated it. Told around like 65 fans a bus or students a bus, so over 100 for sure. Nice little chunk of crowd that they can put by them and get some motivation.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. It's probably costing them more to rent the buses and the drivers and the gas than what's actually being paid by the customers. So it's a pretty good deal. I did something similar when I was in school at Arkansas for a trip to Ole Miss football, and wasn't as fun. Because they pretty much put us on school buses, and it rained, and I was freezing cold all the way back from Ole Miss.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
It was the worst football trip of my life, and I did it because I'd never really been to an away game, and I wanted to see Ole Miss, and yeah, I wore shorts and a short sleeve shirt, and it rained, it got cold, and it was awful. Anyway, but this will not be that. This will be much nicer.
The weather's supposed to be nice, and it's indoors, so if it rains indoors, that would be tough. But it'll be interesting. This is kind of a game you look at and say, man, a little bit of a trap just with the idea it's on the road, back on the road. Then you got the news coming out tonight. Team kind of finds out how they're going to respond Friday. I'm interested to see how they play. And Mississippi State's a pretty good team, so could be tough. Just that I think it's going to be emotional, and we'll see which way they kind of respond. Because I think it's going to be tough knowing what Wiley's out, and that's just a tough situation to respond to within 48 hours because it's an early game too on Saturday.
Yeah, and Mississippi State's 13-3. They've lost back-to-back games against Ole Miss on the road and at Florida. They lost by 17 at Florida. They've scored in the 50s these last two games. This Mississippi State team is not one that scores a lot of points. If you look through their season, other than some huge blowouts against some really bad teams like North Florida. But it'll be interesting to see how Auburn plays against them because Mississippi State had some success, even though they lost against Florida, in the paint against the Gators. Auburn's got to play its game and negate those big men in the paint by playing their up-tempo style. I think Auburn's got a good shot. If you look at KenPom.com right now, they give Auburn a 63% chance of winning that game, but it's a close game, of course, whenever it's that low of a percentage. Be interesting. This is the type of game that you want to win your home games, obviously, but if you could steal a few on the road, and I know you'll look at Mississippi State and go, well, they got a good record, but then their RPI's in the 60s or whatever. But it's so difficult to win games on the road in basketball. Maybe tougher than football, to be quite honest, percentage-wise. And this is a game, if you steal on the road, you feel very good, especially going into Alabama the next week on Wednesday. So it's going to be interesting. By the way, looking at KenPom right now, I mean, this is just all projections based off computer stuff. Projected record for Auburn right now is 25-6. That would be something.
That's crazy. But I mean, realistically, they only need like 4 more wins, 5 more wins to be in the kind of conversation of things. And so every win you kind of get closer to being able to sort of struggle down the stretch with kind of being a team that's undersized and undermanned. So every one matters. Not that they don't in general, but they've built themselves a nice little cushion here, and this one would be nice to get. I think it's going to be tough. Just with the kind of stretch they played, and they were tired in that first half against Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss had them on the ropes, and they were without their best player. So it'll be interesting to see what Auburn gets Saturday on the road.
Yeah, Auburn's next 6 games, I think, are pretty tough, even though they're against teams that are not huge name brand teams, except for Missouri. But they play at Mississippi State. They go to Alabama. They play Georgia at home. Georgia's been tough. They go to Mizzou. That's a game that will be extremely tough. Mizzou's playing well. Then they have to play LSU, which just blew out Arkansas on the road.
Yeah.
Then they have to go to Ole Miss, and we saw what Ole Miss did in the first half against Auburn, and that could be a tricky game as well. Those 6 games right there are pretty tricky, in my opinion, for Auburn. But Auburn's been playing so well this season. They always find a way, and as I've mentioned over and over again, it's hard to stop a team if they're one out rebounding you and also shooting the 3 ball very good for one stretch in one game. If they could do both of those things in one game, it's hard to beat Auburn.
Well, it was interesting. I thought Ole Miss was doing well at not kind of falling into that trap where if Auburn hits a 3, you just start kind of trying to match them. In the first half, they were just doing what they were doing and letting Auburn Auburn wasn't shooting very well, but every time Auburn would hit something, they'd go to the paint or get an offensive rebound. In the second half, they kind of got away from that. I don't think teams do well matching that style because you can't. If Auburn's on, you can't match them shot for shot. You have to defend them and just kind of get what you can get to try to be able to beat them. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a big test, I think. And Bruce Pearl's had them ready all season, even when they've kind of started slow. They've found a way to respond. So it'll be interesting to see how focused they are coming out on the road this weekend.
Yeah, honestly, outside that Temple game, the worst game they've played this year was Ole Miss, and they still won by 15, and that was only the first half. And I mean, they've been playing really solid basketball all season. Sorry, I'm a little sick here. All right, let's talk a little football here. So Gus Malzahn was in Houston Wednesday at the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award. He was a finalist. He didn't win the award. But he was on the radio there, talked about several subjects, talked about Jarrett Stidham coming back, talked about Auburn. It was interesting. He said that he believed Auburn was the only team he believed throughout the season that could beat Alabama. And he said, of course, that came true. I would love to be able to follow up with him on that if he would level with us and go, why did you think that? Did you really think that? What point in the season did you think that? He'd never give us an answer, but it's funny because it's not funny, but it's interesting that, he goes on these radio shows outside the state sometimes, and it's almost as if he doesn't think anybody's listening, and he gives some really good answers on stuff. And
he also spoke at the coaches convention, and he was a little more relaxed and open just with some of the coaches, too.
Right.
The day before that as well. So
yeah, and of course,
busy week, Gus quotes.
Yeah, and of course he said at the coaches convention that he thought the SEC network was going to be a cool thing, but now it's turned into a situation where they're just trying to get a coach fired. Well, then that makes headlines, and then he goes on this radio show in Houston and says, "Oh no, that was a joke. I was just joking around. Really, that was just a joke." I don't know if he's joking completely now, because he even said, "Did they say that I should be fired?" I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: I mean, Gus Malzahn's always been very hesitant to go on the Paul Feinbaum show, and he actually did that at least twice this year. Georgia week, and then Monday at the SEC championship. It was the SEC championship part 2, but the national championship between Alabama and Georgia, he went on the Feinbaum show. But I know he doesn't like doing that.
Well, that was, I thought, the interesting timing, because he hadn't been on the show in years, and then the things have thawed. So he was on twice this year, and then for him to make the comments, that's really what it had to be directed at, right? I mean, no other sort of when they do the review shows, I mean, a lot of those analysts aren't calling for jobs. I don't know. Did Marcus Spears call for his job? Maybe. Who knows? But interesting, just because the network's kind of important to what the SEC and SEC schools want to do. It sounded like somebody got to him and said, "Hey, maybe we want to tone that down."
Yeah, because the reason why you're getting a big contract is partially because of the extra money schools are getting from the SEC network.
And for $49 million, you should be able to have a thicker skin.
Well,
right?
that and yeah, I've been accused of not having a thick skin this week, so
but you don't get paid $49 million.
Exactly. And I'm also, his job's not to be on Twitter and on the computer.
And if you're not, he's so insulated that he rarely sees any of this anyway. Somebody tells him, it's not like he's watching the news from 7 to 11 o'clock in the morning, like some people.
He's not. But if he's told something, and he's interested in it, his wife or someone on the staff will get it to him, and he'll watch it, because I know he watched an appearance of mine back in August.
But I'm just saying, it's not on his radar like right away. He's not a guy that seeks that stuff out. So it was just interesting that he had that kind of strong opinion, especially on kind of the hand that feeds you a little bit.
And now that I'm thinking of it, he said he liked that I picked Auburn to win 10 games back in August. I remember that now. Remember the get-together?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he liked that. I don't think he would have liked it now, considering that he knows that he could have been in the playoff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But the comments about Alabama were interesting as well. Would it have been with which quarterback, though? Could they beat him with Tua?
Yeah, I think so still. I still think they would have gotten to him.
You haven't bought into the Tua magic?
No, I mean, I believe he's a really good quarterback.
No, he's like man of the year now, man.
Well, listen,
right? People are like going crazy
Georgia would have won that game if they had sacked him when those 3 guys tried to hit him and he somehow rolled out of it on 3rd down and ran for a first down. That's what changed the entire game to me. That was the play of the game. I think Auburn still would have beaten Alabama if Tua came in that game, like in the second half. It was just too much. Alabama was overwhelmed by Auburn's defensive line. Georgia wore down. Georgia's defense wore down because of that Rose Bowl overtime. Have to go across the country and then come back the next week. Auburn, in the situation they were in at the Iron Bowl, Auburn still would have beaten Alabama, I believe.
Interesting. It would have been interesting if they had made that switch at halftime of that Auburn game.
Well, they could have, because Jalen wasn't playing so well then. I just don't think Auburn would have had to change his defensive plan with Tua in there, because he does the same running. He's a better passer, I believe, but Auburn wasn't letting guys open.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts didn't have a lot of time to throw the ball because they were up in his face all the time, and Georgia wasn't able to really do that. They wore down. Their defensive line wore down in that game.
Here's a hypothetical for you. Do you think Gus would prefer to face Nick Saban, however long he coaches again, for 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years, most probably? Or would you think you'd want him to take that Giants job?
I think every SEC coach would love it if he took the Giants job.
Do you think it's secretly, if you got him in a truth serum, that they would say, like, we'd rather just
get out? Listen, I've always said, if you could secretly ask and like pool, like in a secret society, go meet in a weird secret cave somewhere, and with all of the athletic directors, and say, we need all of you to come up with like $10 million, and we're going to give Nick Saban $130 million, and he said he'll leave. I bet they would do it.
Do you think Gus would too? You think he doesn't?
No, Gus is not involved. These are athletic directors.
I know athletic, but I'm saying Gus. Do you think he'd want to beat Nick Saban, or do you think he'd rather him just get out? So
he's already beaten him twice, and why not let him go? Go away. You won 6 national titles. Go away. Thank you.
But does it count if you don't win the title that year?
Does it count that you beat him?
Yeah, does it really count? Like in the what game? What
listen.
Because you don't get the title.
Bama probably shouldn't have been in the playoff.
I disagree with that. I think that's.
You can make the argument
they did. They're best team in the country.
I understand that, but Ohio State probably should have been in. Though I can understand Alabama being in. I'm not saying Alabama shouldn't have been in, but they probably shouldn't have been in. But having said that, the issue with the playoff now is that even if you don't win your division, you get to get in the playoff, and also you get an extra week off. Auburn didn't get that luxury. They played Georgia, then Alabama, got beat up a little bit, had to go into that Georgia game beat up, and lost that game as a result. I think if they had a healthy Kerryon Johnson, they probably still beat Georgia, or at least that's a close game going in the fourth quarter. And then Auburn might be in the playoff anyway. But
that was another opinion he shared. Gus said he wants 8 teams in the playoff too, which is shocking considering the SEC usually has 3 teams or 2 teams in the discussion. So
yeah, I mean that's not going to happen for a while. But I guess the issue is that Alabama has been able to make the playoff. And they've proven it now without having to win the SEC title or even the division. And that's something they need to figure that out. I don't know if non-division winners.
Well, you're not going to see changes. They won the title, so who cares, right? That they got it right. So why does it have to be changed? I think if they were to get blown out against Clemson, maybe people would sort of say we got to change this. But
I know.
They were the best team, so
I can see it from both. I can see it from both sides, but man. But having said that, it does. I don't think it. Fans should not look at it. Auburn fans should not look at it as well. That doesn't count because Alabama won the national title. Well, Auburn played Alabama once and they beat them handily. Yeah, but
then the other side of it is they did lose to the other national champion,
UCF.
UCF. So really lose.
What do you think would happen if UCF played Bama?
Wipe the floor with them.
I agree with that. I mean, kudos to UCF for doing what they did, but Auburn had an off day. I will say that. I hate it when people say, "Well, the team had an off day." Auburn had an off day. They were walking around like zombies early in that game. If Auburn was pumped and focused for that game, they would have beaten UCF, in my opinion. But that's why that's why bowl games are the way they are. That's why you get some exciting ones, and that's why you get some surprising results, because sometimes teams just aren't. And listen, the human side of me sits back and thinks, I can't really blame some of Auburn's players for approaching the game as such early in the game, whether it was on purpose or accidentally in their mind, subliminally early in the morning. It's much different when you're preparing for UCF and say you're preparing for Penn State or Ohio State in a New Year's Six bowl. It just is. I'm sorry.
That wasn't a good month for Auburn.
It wasn't. But it was a great month for Gus. He got a lot of money.
Well, is it official? Is it official? Has he signed? Do we know if that's been signed?
I don't know. All I know is that Auburn still won't turn anything over to us. I have asked so many times. I've got like a string of emails. I've like 20-something emails.
Is there going to be a movie of you, like the Pentagon Papers, trying to get this contract?
Yes, it's called it's called the Post 2.
Even post year.
Even post year. Kevin James with an extra 50 pounds and bald plays me.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And Glenn Close plays you.
That's a good one. That's good.
Yeah.
She has a good beard, but that's okay. She could probably do it. She's good enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of comedies, how's the athletic director search going?
Well, it just keeps on spinning around the circle there in the carousel. We reported, what day was it now? I mean, my days are all mashed up. There are 3 candidate names that I've heard the most. Jamie Pollard at Iowa State, Rob Mullins at Oregon, and then this is like a bad word to some Auburn fans. This is like this would be bleeped on television for some fans. Tim Jackson.
So what's with the hate with all that? Because you got yourself into some trouble by just saying his name on the board.
I mean, I don't think he'll be high. I don't think he'll be the new AD. But there are people.
What's the hate? What did he do? I mean, did he personally go to people's houses and poop on their porch or something? Like
he's
what?
Just been
What happened?
Part of it's a lot of things. He's been in Auburn for a very long time, and you start losing favor and curry with everybody.
They just want a newer name.
That and. Everybody always hears things about him or this or that, or they've had bad experiences with him personally. And then back during the Cam Newton saga, it was weird because at that point, I wasn't here, but I was
on the periphery of it a little bit.
Yeah. He was described as the general manager of Auburn football.
Weird.
Way before, what's his name was doing that at Arizona State.
Right, way before, Herm Edwards.
Herm Edwards started to have a general manager. But he was kind of that. He was Cam Newton's protector. He handled Cam Newton. Just very weird, kind of like a shadowy figure always in the background of everything with football. And then he kind of got kicked to the curb on that, and now is in the ticket office. And with Tigers Unlimited, and you never know what he's doing over there and everything. And so people, it's one of those situations like maybe with me a little bit, they just don't like his face. Partially. Yeah, people just don't like him. And they also see him as part of the
old guard.
The old guard. Right. Yeah. And they don't want that. Auburn fans have been striving for
clean break from the past.
And they want to be able to start anew and get someone in here that can build off of what has already happened and kind of polish the brass, so to speak. You know what I mean? There are so many things Auburn could do just from a facility standpoint and just to help the Auburn brand, and they're not doing it. For example, I was discussing this today on the Bodyguard message board. At Auburn Arena, there's a little mini museum there, and it's horrible. It's not kept up very well. Sections of it aren't working. At one point, I remember seeing a trophy had fallen off of its pedestal.
Oh, the thing with the change, it just kind of is changing pictures a little bit in the glass cases and stuff.
Yeah, that. But also, there's a trophy. There's some trophies over there. One of the trophies part of the trophy had fallen off, and I've got pictures of it. This is from a year or 2 years ago. It was literally just sitting there for about a year.
Nice.
No one fixed it. How irritating is that? Things like that. And they need to pump up their tradition more. They need to put their stuff on display. The Kick Six football, for example, has been in Jay Jacobs' office drawer. Really? Celebrate your history. Let people see it.
You're just jealous because you're not in Jay Jacobs' drawer. Although that's been cleaned out, according to...
that's part of the reporting there. Last week, apparently, Jay Jacobs started cleaning out his office, which has led some people to believe in that department and outside the department that a hire is coming soon. But I've been told it could happen in the next 2 weeks sometime. One person told me it could happen this weekend based off what they're hearing. But it is pretty quiet
I got two questions for you.
Tim Jackson's not going to be the AD.
Alex, is that Tim Jackson? Tim Jackson. But should fans be? Is it concerning that Jamie Pollard's on the list?
I don't know. Just because of the connection.
Because of the, like, is he just if he gets it, has this search produced anything? Because it's really you're just going with the guy they hired before. Do you think that's a concern? Because this president has rubbed some people the wrong way with kind of how he's dealt things the last couple of months, and you heard he's had issues in the past. But do you think that that's a concern, that if you just go with that guy that you already hired, that's something that
certainly
search? You think so?
Yeah, certainly, and he'll have questions to answer from the media whenever he speaks to us. Finally,
yeah.
But I just don't. If they hire him, I'm not gonna say it's a mistake because you never know what'll happen, but that just doesn't look good at first glance.
Perception, and
it's all about perception nowadays. Who are they going to hire? I really don't know. The names that have been said to me the most by people are those three names.
Two have been ruled out, right? David Benedict is out, and Michelle McKenna-Doyle's out.
Yeah, I talked to Michelle McKenna-Doyle, what was it, last week? And she pulled her name out of consideration. Said she wishes Auburn well. She's always an Auburn fan and all that. But she pulled out of it, which made it sound like that a hire was imminent. But still nothing official. We'll see. But those are the three names I've heard. I don't think Tim Jackson's going to be the guy.
It's disappointing with her. Just I thought that would have made a progressive hire, just with a woman with some of the Title IX issues the school's had, and a fresh face. I thought that made a lot of sense.
I did too. I had a couple of people tell me they thought that she was going to be the hire.
Yeah. Do you think it's an attractive job?
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Well, just what you got your basketball program embroiled and stuff. You got your football coach with a contract that's basically going to dictate what you do for the next 7 years. You don't think that people have questions or concerns?
There's so much money involved with the SEC now.
It just doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The football thing is not going to dictate what that athletic director does for 7 years. It might dictate what they do for 2 years. It ain't going to dictate what they do for 7.
Well, they're going to have an ugly addition to that Jordan Hare Stadium, because have you seen how that thing looks? It's like they're putting up walls now.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's really ugly. They're going to have to do some work on that stadium.
They need to. That needs to be one of the top issues for the athletic director. They need to look at facilities. They need to go build a football complex. They need to do that before they update the stadium, in my opinion. Then they need to update the stadium. And you're going to hear people crying out, oh, you can't be all football. Yeah, it is, because it's a football school. Football makes the money. Basketball got its brand new arena 7 years ago. Softball is getting upgrades and all that. It's time for football to start getting some upgrades. It's about damn time.
Well, they've announced, I think, upgrades to every other sport now, and so football's due almost.
Absolutely. That's why I hear that I hear the murmurs from certain people whenever I talk about it. Well, it can't be all football. I'm like, yes, it has to be all football right now. Are you kidding me? They've got to upgrade. They've got to do things. They've got to build new buildings. They've got to strike now. They can't they're falling behind every single day they don't do anything. I mean, the athletics complex was built in the late 80s, and it looks like it.
Yeah.
The stadium hasn't been really upgraded on a major level since the 80s. It's time. It's way past time. All right. So anyway, for the athletics director thing, maybe in the next 2 weeks, we'll see. We'll see. The president's office still won't talk to me about it. I asked if they want to provide an update to fans and all that, and they said no. So there you go. And the President Leith in Huntsville this past week said that they're taking their time. And this came after back in November when his President Leaf's right-hand man told me and other reporters that he will act quickly. He likes to hire people quickly. And that one of his big hires he just made happened in a span of 36 days and a similar timeline. Wouldn't it be surprising? And that's coming past times 2 almost. So anyway, listener questions time. We're going first to, we don't have a lot, and a lot of these are repeats based off what we've already discussed with Austin Wiley, so I'm not really going to hit on that. First is from Ahmed Corner. The obvious question, do you think there's any chance Wiley comes back for next year? I think there's a chance, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of comes down to projection. He can put his name in the ring and then pull back, too, and test the waters. And that could be kind of the determining factor, because once he gets out in front of people, they could go, man, there's not a lot of players that have his skill set in the league right now. We really like this guy, and shoot up a little bit and leave. Or maybe he doesn't do well and then just decides to come back. So I think that'll be kind of one of the determining factors come spring.
Wow, this is a heck of a hypothetical. This comes from Dallas Downs. Two-part hypothetical. Two-parter. Odds that Wiley, Mustafa Heron, or both come back next year. I think we just hit on Wiley. Heron, I don't know. What do you think?
Odds that, well, if you're asking me the odds that both come back, let's say 20%.
What about Heron?
I don't think he's had a great season so far. I mean, Bruce Pearl will tell you he's great and everything, but I think he's been okay. I think he'll have a tough decision. I think he'll put his name in and kind of decide from there, because right now you don't really see him on any mock drafts. He might want to leave just because, he's far from home. I kind of flirted with that in the offseason a little bit.
That was weird, by the way.
That was weird. I think, but hey, they have a successful run. Maybe that kind of keeps them in the fold and says we could build on this. But I think it's going to be a question mark for both players. I think both are going to be valuable.
And then this is the second part. If both return, would the Final Four be a fantasy or realistic possibility?
Maybe.
I don't know.
If you brought everybody back and you had a grad transfer that's decent, or a JUCO, maybe. But I mean, that's long odds. A lot of hurdles to climb there.
Billy Breathes asks, if Tommy Tuberville had not hired Tony Franklin, how many national titles would we have? Will we be out of fingers? That's more of a joke than a question, so I guess we'll move on. I don't know if there's a serious answer for that. Of course, that's like all the questions. Everybody just wants to know about Austin Wiley. Recruiting question, which we do not have the answer for concerning football. It is a good official visit weekend coming up. 10 to 12 kids probably going to be on campus for football as the second signing day approaches on the first Wednesday of February. Not the big signing days it used to be, but now with the early signing period, it's the second signing day. Auburn's got some spots left. 10 to 12 kids visiting, including Anthony Schwartz, who the big-time receiver who's already committed to Auburn. But we'll have more information on this recruiting weekend from Keith Niebuhr starting Friday and, of course, throughout the weekend. So keep it at auburnundercover.com for that. Also at auburnundercover.com, we have a special deal that runs out at midnight Friday, so you better get on it. $9.95 for only $9.95. If you sign up for 1 month, you'll get 2 months free. So you get 3 months for the price of one at $9.95. 3 months for the price of only $9.95. Go sign up today. Go take advantage of that. And because when it goes away Friday, I don't know if we'll have it back until maybe this summer. So you better go So you better go try that out if you want to. Again, $9.95 for 3 months. Go to auburn.247sports.com or auburnundercover.com. You'll see the link. Click it. Subscribe. Do it. You should. Anything else you would like to discuss, Michael, on this episode?
I had something that I saw this today at some point, but with everything that happened, I completely forgot what it was.
Great. I saw a movie called A Ghost Story.
That's the one with the guy in the sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that?
I really liked it. Now, it's very slow at the start. So slow, in fact, I'm not really ruining anything. There is a scene that legitimately goes on probably for 8 minutes of someone just sitting on the floor eating a pie. No camera changes, nothing.
That's why it's your favorite movie in the history of movies.
But it makes sense.
Okay.
Once the movie starts going. The movie is about this couple. The husband dies, and he becomes a ghost, and he's literally just in a sheet. It's a weird choice, just to make the ghost in a sheet, but it works, and he can kind of interact with his surroundings, but sometimes he can't. Of course, no one can see him. There's a ghost in the house next door that he communicates with, which is kind of interesting in the way they do that, because there's no talking. There's a monologue in the middle of the movie, and outside of that, there might be 7 words that are said. It's really good, and it's shot in 4:3 aspect ratio. It's really intimate. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and it deals with time.
Go ahead.
It deals with time. It's all about time, and that's why the pie eating scene, which goes on for 8 minutes, makes so much more sense as the movie goes along. It's part of the narrative choice and the plot and why they did it.
Well, you just spoiled it because the pie is the villain, right?
Say it again.
The pie is the villain.
The pie is the villain. It turns into Thanos.
I think it's not this weekend, but next weekend. A new series on Starz. Have you seen trailers for this series called Counterpart?
Yeah, I want to see that.
With J.K. Simmons. I read a review of it today. They said it's really good, and I'm really excited about that one. J.K. Simmons is terrific, and he plays dual roles, the same person in alternate realities. I'm really excited about that one. Got a good review, too. So.
Yeah, I thought that looked very interesting. And I love J.K. Simmons. He's great. That movie, Whiplash, really sold me on him.
Like light sci-fi like that I like that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched another movie last night. I couldn't sleep last night because I'm sick. So I watched Ghost Story, which was really good. It's on Amazon Prime. And Marjorie Prime, which is also on Amazon Prime.
Oh, John Hamm? I saw the preview.
Yeah. It's okay. It's kind of that light sci-fi you were discussing.
Yeah.
It's about a woman who's got like dementia. She's close to dying. And so her daughter, who's played by Gina Davis, and her husband, who's played by Tim Robbins, gets a hologram of her former husband who died earlier. It gets a younger version of him, which is John Hamm, and he's the hologram. And he kind of is just there to tell her stories about their past together. And the stories are only come from from Tim Robbins, the son-in-law, and then Gina Davis, the actual daughter. And pretty much the whole movie's about how memories, as time goes along, kind of start fading, but also they change.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. The execution was pretty good, but there's like one thing that holds it all together, and then that's how they end the movie. I wish they would have filled some gaps, not necessarily with the narrative as far as, well, this is what this means, but as far as what I wanted more time with certain characters. We didn't really get that, but it's based off a play. You could tell this was a play because they pretty much spend one time in one room the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And I would recommend it if you're just sitting around and you want to watch a free movie on Amazon Prime or something. But I would recommend A Ghost Story over that. A Ghost Story is really good. It's like 87 minutes. The first act, I was sitting there going, I'm turning this off. This is stupid. And then it ramps up, and you're like, whoa. But I would really recommend that. It's pretty good.
I would not recommend that movie Bright that debuted on Netflix. That was terrible.
I've been thinking about watching that, but just I don't know anything.
It's
David
good.
Ayer directed that, right? And he did
Yeah,
Suicide Squad, so I'm not interested.
it was aggressively bad.
Yeah. Plus, didn't Max Landis write it? Max Landis does some weird stuff.
Yeah, I did not like it.
Well, apparently it got a lot of people watching because they've already greenlit the sequel.
$80 million budget, and it was just, I mean, it's crazy. It was not very good.
Netflix has money to burn, I guess. They're just making a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
did you see the preview for their new series? It's one of based on what's his face, but the guy that did the short story for Blade Runner. What's his name?
Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, his new series. What is it called? It looks like the most expensive television series. Altered Carbon Copy. What is it called?
Oh, that's the one with Joel Kinnaman, right?
Yeah, they released an extended new trailer for it. And
Yeah, I haven't seen that trailer. I saw the initial teaser. But,
yeah, it came out today, and it looks like the most. Well, first of all, it just looks like Blade Runner, but Altered Carbon is the name of the show, and it looks like it cost $1 gazillion.
yeah. I only knew about it because Joel Kinnaman was RoboCop and did a bad job at it.
And you have Google alerts on Joel Kinnaman. And it looks interesting, but that's hard sci-fi.
Yeah, sometimes that hard sci-fi stuff I can't really get into. Like, is he like a bunny rabbit? Kind of like that movie with Channing Tatum or whatever, when he was half bunny.
Yes. And the other half is a puppy.
Okay. I'm interested in seeing The Post. That comes out this week.
Also, The Commuter.
Another Liam Neeson movie where he must...
With like the same director of the other one that does everyone except the Taken ones, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe when it's on Netflix or something. Even then, I probably still won't watch it. You know, I watched Taken, and then I watched Taken 2, and then I was like, this isn't good, so I stopped watching all those movies.
They get progressively worse.
I haven't seen a Liam Neeson movie since Taken 2.
I think I've seen in all of them. They're not. He's not the. Well, he did the one. Oh, let's see. Let's see Liam Neeson's IMDb. This is really exciting podcasting right here.
Well, he's done that movie Nonstop or whatever, and Walk Among the Tombstones, and then he did that movie with Joel Kinnaman, which I heard was actually not bad. I actually watched part of it one night. It was on HBO or Cinemax or something, where his son kills someone or something. Who's
that
Joel
one was
Kinnaman.
good. I said Run All Night.
Run All Night, and Common's in it, and Common was pretty dang good, man.
He did a Walk Among Tombstones. That was okay. Taken 3. Oh, Nonstop. That was about the. Was that about a train too? No, that was about a plane. That one wasn't very good. Taken 2. He just does a lot of these movies. Unknown. That was a similar one, I think, directed by the same director. They have quite the pairing.
I still haven't seen that movie he did with the director of the A-Team or whatever.
Which one's that?
The Wolf movie.
Oh, The Gray?
The Gray, yeah.
I heard that's terrible. I can tell you how it ends if you want to know.
I seen the ending. I was just flipping through the channels one night and I saw the ending. But I heard it was good.
Dark Man, that was good.
Oh, I love Dark Man.
Dark Man was like always one of my favorite like bad B movies.
It was so good. I love it when they let Sam Raimi just do whatever he wants. I mean, that was Sam Raimi's like first big budget movie.
Yeah, and then it was his last big budget movie for a while.
And then they let him do Spider-Man after that. I can't believe it. But
not shortly after that. There was some time in between those two things.
Well, sure, but just the fact they went, you know what? We need to hire the guy who did Dark Man and the Evil Dead movies. Let's get him on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it worked brilliantly. But Dark Man's great. I mean, it's just classic Sam Raimi, and it's so schlocky, and yeah, it's great.
There were just 12 years between the Spider-Man and Dark Man.
Did he do Dark Man before Army of Darkness or after?
Yeah, In between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness.
Man, he was on a run there. Those were great movies.
And then he did The Quick and the Dead.
Yes, that's right. The Quick and the Dead.
Which is not a very good movie, but one of the first Russell Crowe movies. And then he did A Simple Plan, which was a good movie.
And then Spider-Man came out to play. I love the first Spider-Man movie. I think it's great.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Well, I mean, it's pretty cheesy when you look back at it. But Willem Dafoe is awesome. That whole phone call with Peter, and he's all like, "Can Spider-Man come out to play?" I love it. It's good stuff.
Pretty good. You do a pretty good William Dafoe. Maybe that could be your fallback career.
Yeah, right. I can do a good William Dafoe when I'm sick. I also want to see a Willem Dafoe movie called The Florida Project, but I can't.
Yeah,
find
that didn't come.
Anything.
That's not going to come out around here. You're going to have to see it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it looks so good, and it's like #1 on a lot of people's lists for 2017.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very good.
But haven't been able to see it. Yeah, but I want to see the post. I'm guessing that will come out here this week. I would hope.
I think it expands because it had a limited release for the Oscar stuff, so I think it'll expand eventually.
The post?
Yeah.
Yeah, it expands this week, the 12th.
Yeah.
Supposed to. Anyway, so there you go.
Some movie talk.
Some little movie talk to end your day for whatever reason. I hope this recorded because it's saying 9 minutes. That doesn't make sense. That or it recorded and had to start over again. I'm guessing it had to start over. It had to do like another file after an hour.
Okay.
Whatever. All right. That's it for the Auburn Undercover podcast. None of you were listening the last 10 minutes. That's fine. But at least you listened to the first part. That's all we care about. Go to Auburn.
Sending a transcript out anyway to our subscribers.
Yeah. Certain people do not like the podcast, and that's fine. Some of you like it. Some of you just hate me. That's fine. Just don't call me a fat douche. I don't like that. It hurts my feelings.
I just didn't know you did a good William Dafoe impression. I think that's going to win over a lot of listeners.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's it. Go to auburnundercover.com for complete coverage, including a story we didn't talk about on here about how Auburn almost had a laptop stolen from the defensive staff at the Peach Bowl. Alabama had a playbook stolen from them before the national championship game, all at the same hotel. Need to beef up security there at the Marriott Marquis. But we have a story on that if you want to go read about Auburn almost losing one of its playbooks, so to speak, before the Peach Bowl. Anyway, 3 months for the price of one. Go sign up. AuburnUndercover.com. I'm Brendan Marcello. That's been Michael Niziolek. We'll see you down the road.